Hello, I'm Rob Curley, the editor of the Spokesman-Review, and today we're having another one of our virtual Northwest Passages community forums. Today we have Spokane Mayor Nadine Woodward, and we're very excited about this because this is the first elected official we've
Oh,
had.
very good.
And she'll be in an interview with our city government reporter, Adam Shanks. So I'm going to get out of the way and let you all go, except for to tell Adam that I love the picture in your background.
Never
Oh,
hurts to
that
have a
is
little branding.
great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you both for doing this.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks. So, Mayor, obviously, the topic of the day is the coronavirus, and particularly the city's response to it. I want to sort of go back to what we talked about a little bit yesterday, which is how this sort of began and unfolded for you from your perch. And you mentioned to me this phone call you got about the 4 patients who were being taken to Sacred Heart. I mean, walk me through that phone call and how that sort of set the course for your next, several weeks in office.
Sure. It was a 24-hour notice call from the federal government alerting us that 4 patients who had tested positive for the coronavirus were being transported to Sacred Heart Hospital in Spokane. And it was because of the pathogens unit that the hospital had, one of only 10 in the country. And we knew that the city had been, Sacred Heart had been training for 4 years for a moment like this. And I got the call that they'd be transported within 24 hours. It would be 4 individuals from that Princess Cruise line. That was our first exposure to coronavirus in Spokane. And the next day when they arrived, 2 patients at a time, I know the media was tracking it very closely as they flew in. And some of the first response that I received from the community was some outrage, to be honest with you. And people wanted to know how I could allow this to happen, why I would allow coronavirus patients to be treated in Spokane. Why couldn't they vote on that? Why couldn't they have a say in it? And so we had to figure out a way to make that a positive because people were angry. And what we ended up doing was highlighting the incredible quality of healthcare that we have in this community, and why we are a leader in healthcare, and why we're in this all together, right? But I tell you what, it made us start thinking much earlier than we would have otherwise about our response to COVID.
Yeah, and to be clear, when that call comes in, they're not giving you a choice.
Oh, no. Not at all. It's a heads up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And not even much beyond that. We couldn't get any questions, our own questions answered. Where are they coming from? I mean, where do they originate? Any of that. We had very, very few details. And then our fire department was instrumental, and police department, in transporting those patients from the airport here. And people wanted to know, well, how was that going to happen? Would there be exposure in that during that route from the airport to the hospital? So lots of questions from the community that, quite frankly, early on, we didn't have a lot of details to give them. So anyway, that was our introduction into Spokane on COVID, and it kicked us into gear, into having the conversation that we need to have a plan, because we had seen what was going on elsewhere, especially on the west side, and that we needed to start being proactive.
So what immediate steps did you take? Did this feel like a city issue yet at that point?
It was more internal within City Hall. It was what we were going to start doing as an organization to prepare ourselves for this. So it was, those early conversations were telecommuting from home, sanitizing City Hall. When we started getting information about the school closures, How are we going to stand up daycares within our own buildings so that we could have people come to work? So we talked about it internally and then started looking externally into the community about what we were going to do as well. Because I mean, we have that dual perspective or role really in the city of Spokane, dealing with our own employees and then dealing with the entire community as well. So it's a big job.
Well, I know that you've kind of taken this approach throughout the last several weeks of just trying to get information out to the public, be it through City Cable 5 or Twitter, whatever it is. How much time would you say you're balancing between getting information out to the public and actually like working behind the scenes to set policy and work on
the
response?
majority of it is behind the scenes. The majority of it is working with groups out at the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, setting our priorities about what we were going to do out in the community when it came to food security, when it came to our vulnerable population, when it came to small businesses and the economic side of this, because this is a health emergency and an economic emergency, and what that looked like. Just setting up an emergency coordination center at the very beginning out at the fire training center. What that looked like. And it wasn't just the city. We started working as a city alone and then realized very early on that this had to be a collaborative regional response. And so getting all the county involved, getting all the other cities within the county, that takes some time to do that outreach. And I'll tell you what, I had all the mayors in my office the Friday before we set up that emergency coordination center. And we talked about what we were going to do collaboratively on all of this. And then on Monday, we announced that we stood up now the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, and declared an emergency regionally, all of us together.
Mm-hmm. And I know like rumors were floating around that you were going to declare a state of emergency and you held off on that. Was that a nod to a more regional approach and collaboration with other regional leaders? And do you feel like the regional effort and regional approach is working and the response is going well?
I could have done that earlier and I could have done it on my own. But I took a step back and decided this isn't about just the city of Spokane. This isn't just about me. That we need to get everybody on the same page. And so we waited a few days and we had that conversation and we found out that everybody else was thinking about it too, but nobody was willing to pull the plug first. And we said, let's do it together. And it absolutely had to be the way we approach this. And it absolutely has worked out the best.
Mm-hmm. Just to remind folks, you can submit questions. There should be a form underneath the video player. So if you have any questions, feel free to submit those. But so I wanted to also ask you a little bit about the action that you've taken in coordination with the city council. The city has banned all evictions and foreclosure actions right now. What was sort of the impetus behind that? And can you describe how you've continued that good relationship with the council through this pandemic?
Yeah, well, that was something that I felt was very, very important early on in my administration. In fact, it even began during the transition, to be honest with you, that we needed to work together, that the city of Spokane and the community looks at City Hall, not just as the mayor's office or the city council. They see us together. We are the city. And the only way to be impactful and effective, I felt, as a mayor, was to have a good working relationship with them. That we need to be able to work on these things together, and that we're not always going to agree. There are going to be times when we disagree. But we kind of have two rules here at City Hall between the mayor's office and the city council. And that was, number one, we're not going to surprise each other. We're going to keep the door, the communication open. And you can pop into my office. I can go to the other side of the 7th floor and have a conversation with you. And that was very, very important for me. Number two is that we don't disparage each other, that we are going to disagree. But we will agree to disagree. We won't disparage each other in public. And I think that has served us very, very well. I had a lot of people say, oh, this is just the honeymoon period. You just wait until you get into the tough conversations, the tough issues. And I thought, you come to the table with expectations. If I expect that this is going to be a short-term, short-lived thing, that's what I get. If I come to the table thinking, no, this is the way we're going to operate from here on out, that's what I'm going to get. So that's how we operate. It's been very, very healthy. I think everybody is some people are surprised, but everybody here is very happy that we have to do what's best for our community, and getting along is part of the job. In fact, I think people are so upset with the divisiveness of politics nationwide. They expect more from their local leaders, and they deserve more from their local leaders. So when it came to the eviction issue, we anticipated that something from the state was going to come down, but we wanted to be able to fill some of the gaps that the state moratorium might put down. And so we had that conversation. I thought it was very important to include foreclosures, because I understood that we needed to protect renters, that the consequences that come from that, sometimes unintended. I want to make sure that the property owners were protected as well. And so we included foreclosure. I don't know of very many cities who did that initially, but I felt that was really important.
I'm curious what sort of feedback you've gotten since that passed.
A little bit of backlash from property owners, just to be honest with you. But you can't please everybody. And that conversation will continue post-COVID, because I know that's an issue that is very important to our city council. And because of our good relationship, I want to be part of that conversation and working with them on whatever we decide to do past COVID. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you sort of about Order Up Spokane, and that obviously has sort of taken off. Walk me through the beginnings of that campaign and sort of your role in it.
Well, when the businesses started shutting down and the restaurants were allowed to do takeout and delivery, I thought, my gosh, we've got to do something to support those businesses. And so we had a conversation in the mayor's office, and we said, let's come up with some kind of fun little hashtag and let's get out there and support. There was a little bit of criticism from that, to be honest with you, because a lot of people, even to this day, don't think takeout or curbside is healthy. But from all the doctors and epidemiologists that I've heard from, transmitted, the virus isn't transmitted through, it's not foodborne. And so there's very little risk in that. And that's why all the states that have had shutdowns have kept their restaurants open for takeout and delivery. So we decided to do something fun with it, and we talked about a couple different hashtags, and we decided on Order Up Spokane, and it's got a lot of traction. And I'm going to tell you, it is what is keeping some of our businesses operating today, and keeping those employees, some of them have had downsides, the number of their workers, but it is keeping people working. And that was the whole goal. And I love the fact that it's caught on and it's gotten traction on social media, and people are sharing where they're picking up orders, and restaurants are putting it out there, and different media outlets are offering lists of where you can go. And it's been a good thing.
Okay, so what has been your go-to takeout place? What have you personally been?
Oh, I'm trying to be an equal opportunity takeout person. So my first one was Nudo. That was fantastic. I've been doing a lot of Asian. There's a great restaurant on the South Hill called Chef Lou's, and that's kind of been my go-to. I also have my mother is self-isolating, and I do all her grocery shopping for her. She's got Parkinson's. I've been doing takeout for her too. She loves that as well. But it's a great way to support the businesses. And have you been doing it?
Yeah, a little bit. So wait, time out though. I meant to ask you, There's you responding to this as mayor, but I'm curious just in your personal life, how dealing with this has impacted you.
Yeah, it's I feel like I have a pretty good broad spectrum from a number of different perspectives. My dad died 4 weeks into office, and that was really, really hard. So I was just learning the job and the
Hmm.
overwhelming part of that, where yeah, so he passed away, and then the day that I gave my state of the city, I gave that in the morning, and then I got in a car, picked up my mom, and we went to the West Side, buried my dad. So then COVID hit, and my mom is alone for the first time in 60 years. She's got Parkinson's, and I'm taking care of her. And then we have a family business that is taking a huge hit from all of this too. We're trying to keep our employees working, and we're going after all the grants and the small business loans like everybody else. The paycheck protection grant we've applied for. So I kind of feel like I'm kind of getting at all of it. So, but we're doing great work, I think, in the city. We have a great team. I couldn't be prouder of the work that our staff is doing out at the Emergency Operations Center. So it's all good, and I love this community. I love how we've all come together, and we're seeing some of the real positive things that are coming out of something so difficult to live through right now, and that's
Hmm.
what's inspiring to me. That's what keeps me going. Yeah.
We have a question from Ellen here. How does the city plan to launch up summer jobs like lifeguards, that sort of thing? How does this impact that? Do you know?
Everything's on hold. Everyone wants to know, how do we start? Oh, thanks. Everybody wants to know, just a minute. Well, everybody wants to know how we're going to open up the city again. We're working on that, and gosh, that could be in waves. I don't know. I wish I could look into that crystal ball and tell you when we're going to be on the other side of this, and when we get to a place where we think we can start opening up businesses again and opening up the city again. We're going to take some of that direction, a lot of that direction, from Dr. Bob Lutz out at the Health District. Right now, I think we're in a pretty good place. I mean, our healthcare system hasn't been overwhelmed. We're preparing to stand up facilities that we may not need. But that's good. It's better. We always want to prepare for the worst in case we need it. And if we don't need it, at least we were ready for it. So we haven't even had the discussion yet about opening up the public pools and hiring the lifeguards yet. I tell you, one little nice sign of spring, and the weather right now is great. I know people want to get out. My office is right across, City Hall is right across the street from Riverfront Park. I look outside and I see a couple of the maintenance workers sprucing up the park, and it's so wonderful to see that when we're on the other side of this, we're going to be ready for it, and we're going to be ready to enjoy all the things that we have in the city.
Hmm. I also wanted to circle back to some of the work you've done after this virus hit, particularly standing up the library as a temporary homeless shelter, which, even a month ago would have just seemed outrageous. Can
Yeah.
you sort of walk me through how that property was identified and just how that all came together?
I didn't think it was outrageous at all until I started hearing from people who thought it would, the irony of it, right?
Hmm.
So I thought, gosh, well, we wanted to, when we were looking at locations where we could provide more capacity for our vulnerable population, because when we were implementing the social distancing, we were losing a lot of beds, nearly half of our beds. And so typically, those beds are 6 inches apart. Now they need to be 6 feet apart. So we knew we would get some funding to help us in that effort, but how could we make that funding stretch as far as we could? And you do that with a building that you already own. And the library was an excellent option because it was empty. It has lots of space. And that's why we went with it. And it's worked out quite well. We have 40 people, women from the Hope House. And we have about 60 individuals from the Cannon Street Warming Center. they're sectioned off different. You've been there. We did the tour a couple weeks ago, Adam, with you, and it's worked out quite well. They're in separate parts of the first floor. Now, for those, I'm sure everybody knows, but the library is closed for the next 2 years for renovation. A lot of that work hasn't started quite yet, so why not use a space that the city owns, so we wouldn't have to spend that money on?
So we have a question from a viewer wondering about police enforcement of the stay home, stay healthy order. I mean, what's been the city's approach to actual enforcement, like through the police department, versus education, that sort of thing?
It's education first. I haven't heard of any citations that have been given, but if we hear about, for example, a business that may be open that shouldn't be, we'll have somebody go by and have a conversation with them. But we don't want to be in a place where, we're giving out citations unless we absolutely have to. Thankfully, we haven't. I think for the most part, people are doing their job. There's a hotline that you can call and make complaints, and I see those complaints, and I think sometimes there's a lot of people who are home and they don't have a whole lot going on. So every little thing that they think of, they might want to complain about. But so far, I think this voluntary compliance is working out quite well for us.
I'm curious, like in your travels around the community, do you think people are really following the order and generally doing a pretty good job with social distancing, that sort of thing?
I think most people are. I think the challenge is when the weather gets nice like it is today and tomorrow, that you might see more people out and about. And I hope that they're able to stay with those social distancing guidelines. I can't stress how important that is, because as I mentioned last night at our town hall, each one of us is a soldier in all of this. And that's the one most impactful thing that we can do, is to keep that social distancing, wash your hands regularly, proper sneeze and cough etiquette. If you're not feeling well, stay home. Not everyone's going to be tested for COVID, right? If you're not feeling well, no matter who you are, if you're not in that 16 over age group with underlying conditions, and you're probably not going to be tested, act as if you have COVID and stay home. Quarantine, isolate yourself for 14 weeks. That's just the thing that we all have to do.
I'm wondering what sort of questions and requests your office has been seeing. Are you hearing from a lot of business owners like needing help accessing assistance that they need, or people unemployed needing help accessing assistance?
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I just heard, we're getting more feedback on for even the town hall that we had last night. We're getting some feedback on what the needs are in the different, whether it's business or just people who are out of work, and how they're going to get by, how they're struggling through all of this. But the Department of Commerce that just offered up those Working Washington Small Business Emergency Grants, and those are up to $10,000, and they're issued by Greater Spokane Incorporated. Spokane County has had 800 businesses, small businesses. These are businesses with 1 to 10 employees apply for those grants. We're going to have to come up with some way that we can do more to help our small businesses. That's one of the first things that comes to mind. But also, quite frankly, I just signed a letter with 6 other cities, other mayors in the county, that we're sending to Governor Jay Inslee, and that is to open up residential construction. Because I have heard a lot from people who are building a home, they're selling their existing home, and because their home's not finished, they don't have anywhere to go. Mm-hmm. And that's a gap. And we have a housing crisis here that we've had for the last couple of years, that we need builders to build, and we need to keep that going. And I think there are ways that those construction workers can social distance themselves, so that we can take advantage of this time and continue that type of activity in our community. We'll see. Now, I'll tell you what, let me just say, Adam, I had a great conversation with the governor last Thursday, and it was a one-on-one phone call, and I told him about this, and he said, Nadine, I hear your concern. He said, just know that I have a son who owns a construction business and builds homes, and I just shut him down. And so I understand the concern, and let me think about that. So that's why I thought, well, I need to shoot off a letter and let them know that there's regional support for that. And so that will be going out of my office today.
So I'm with the affordable housing crisis already what it is, and the economic situation we're in. Are you concerned and looking ahead to maybe a surge in homelessness at all, or increase in homelessness when the moratoriums expire, the assistance expires, that sort of thing?
That's a good question. That's definitely something on our radar, and we're going to be looking at that closely, and working to make sure that that the homeless population isn't impacted in a way where we see more people on the street needing help. We're going to do everything. In fact, a lot of our work right now is stabilizing people. Right? It's all those jobs. The majority of the jobs that have been lost were in the hospitality, tourism, retail, service industry, and nearly half of the people in especially in the hospitality industry work paycheck to paycheck. 47% of them. And so the majority of the jobs that we're seeing are people who are already very vulnerable, one paycheck away from losing a home. So that's why we did the moratorium on evictions. That's why we made sure that their water wouldn't be shut off. Avista did the same thing with power and that kind of thing. We did a donation drive to try to help people with their utility bills. We raised with the Avista, the city, and our generous community $100,000 to help people with those kinds of payments. So we're doing everything we can to stabilize people so that we don't have a new wave of homeless. So that's where our work is concentrated on right now.
And stabilizing people is obviously the first step, but looking ahead, what can the city offer and do to help people long term?
Well, that's a discussion that we're having as well, and what that looks like is something we're working on. Don't have a lot of details, but I know that the city council has a priority that we're going to work with them on low-income housing. That's a part of the picture. I had a great conversation, I have to tell you, with Workforce this week, and they do great work about getting people back into jobs. And we've had a huge number of unemployment claims in the county, in Spokane County. In fact, week 8 of this year saw about 450-ish unemployment claims. You fast forward to just 4 weeks later, week 12 saw more than 12,000 unemployment claims. That's a 3,000% increase. And so Workforce is looking for an opportunity there. And the opportunity that they see is that if we have all these people who are unemployed, and okay, we get them on unemployment, we try to stabilize them. We hope they have a job when the restaurants and the tourism and retail open back up. But what about people who fall through the cracks? What can we do to help them? And so now they're looking at retraining efforts for these people who are idle right now, especially in the areas of IT, healthcare, manufacturing, and the trades, and what we can do to help them now so that when we're on the other side of COVID, we can put them in a better position of job security and higher income level. So I think that's going to be the push. That's going to be the next thing we start looking at. And it's already on the plate right now. So I think that's great.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious if you've heard any like personal stories from people dealing with this that have really stuck out to you in the last few weeks.
That are struggling?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing that sticks out to me most about this community are the stories that you're hearing from the people who are helping the situation. The people who are making masks by the thousands. The people that are doing food deliveries. Cops, Spokane, that just stepped up and said, if you have an elderly member of your family and you can't check on them, we will for you. We'll make a personal home check. We'll deliver groceries. We'll deliver prescriptions. I used them just last week to have my mom's Parkinson's medicine delivered to her. And it's dropped in the mailbox. You don't even have to have a one-on-one conversation with them or be worried about exposure. Those kinds of things where our community rises to the occasion. And is oftentimes people who have the least to give are the ones who give the most. And I think that's what's so inspiring about this community. And the fact that even during this emergency, and we're still getting food to our elderly. Meals on Wheels is stepping up, and maybe they're not doing daily meals now; they're doing the frozen week-long meals. The fact that the school district is still delivering meals to families in need and children who rely on those meals when school is in session. Nearly 60% of our students in the Spokane School District do. And just the effort that is going out there to help people, that's what we are. That's who we are. And the fact that a lot of the media outlets are giving exposure to that kind of effort, I think is really inspiring to this community. And those are the kinds of stories that we need to hear to lift ourselves up. And when you focus on yourself, it can be hard, it can be difficult, but when you're focusing on other people and helping other people during a time like this, it makes you feel better, and it makes your community better. And so that's inspiring to me.
Yeah. Has it felt sort of strange? I mean, obviously, as mayor, you're always like doing outreach, and you're in the community, and you're face to face with people. I mean, that part of your job must have mostly disappeared basically overnight, right?
It is so true. So all the appearances that you would normally do are gone, right? Because all those events have been canceled. All the big meetings that we have, quite frankly, and all the boards that I serve on have been canceled. Now all the meetings are like this. But it has allowed me and the city to focus on our response and what we're doing with this COVID emergency. And it's made our job much more impactful, that I don't have to be stretched so far doing all these other things that come with the job of being mayor, that I can focus solely on what we're doing as a city, what we're doing in the community, what I'm doing just within City Hall for our own employees as well. It's made that response so much better.
I know it's hard to see a future past COVID-19 right now, but looking ahead, like what sort of stuff do you want to tackle once we get on the other side of this?
You and I were talking about this just yesterday, Adam, and it's about those initiatives that are important to me and what my priorities are, and that is, helping our vulnerable population. That's still a priority. Housing, still a priority. Economic development, still a priority. It's just that we're addressing it a little bit differently during this emergency. It'll be a priority on the other side of this emergency. We've still been able to do some things regarding that, but those priorities don't change. Public safety in all of this, public health becomes part of the public safety, right? When you're in a health emergency. So those things haven't changed. It's just that we've been addressing them a little bit differently. Quite frankly, on the economic development side, it was about building on the momentum that we already had. Now it's about rebuilding that momentum. So those priorities haven't changed. I look forward, though, to being able to address it the way I kind of wanted to when I came into office, and maybe having more of that impact down the road.
I'm trying to think of what some of our viewers might want to know about, and I'm curious if the city still plans to move ahead with a lot of its infrastructure projects and that sort of work that it had planned for this summer.
Absolutely. In fact, we've got some public works construction projects that are coming up that we want to make sure that we're still doing and that are compliant with the governor's orders. That keeps construction employees working. I think the community being able to see that kind of activity also gives them hope that things are still working, that when we're on the side of this, that our city is going to be okay, and it will be okay. So I think that's really, really an important message for people to see.
I know I'm asking you an impossible question, but do you have a sense of how long is the administration, and are you preparing for this sort of social distancing to be in place? How long can we hold out like this?
Well, out at the Emergency Operations Center, we have a 30, 60, 90-day plan. And again, it looks 3 months out, worst case scenario. I am pretty optimistic we won't see that 90-day worst case scenario. I think people want to we lose patience, right? People want to get back to normal. What does that normal look like? I don't even know if we know what that new normal is. But I think that people want to know when we can start seeing the downtown open again, parks open, businesses open. I don't really have an answer for you, but I think the thing that we have to be very, very careful about is not jumping into that new normal too soon, so that we compromise and we take the risk, compromise what we've done, the success that we've had so far, and we risk having a second wave of COVID go through our community. And I think when you look at all the cities that are having this conversation, and even at the federal level, I think that's something that's on everybody's mind, making sure that we don't try to return to normal too soon.
Any other thoughts you want to add about the city's response to this pandemic? And
Well, you know, when I came into office before COVID, and I was in transition in my first couple of weeks, I was just so inspired and so amazed with the talent in City Hall, the people who are so creative and innovative, our city employees. And I thought, this story needs to be told. I mean, our community needs to know how great our employees are and the hard work that they're doing. That hasn't stopped. In fact, that has just accelerated, especially with the city's response to COVID and what they're doing, not only here and the critical services that are still being provided throughout the city during this emergency, but also the work that's going on out at the Emergency Operations Center. So I look forward to continuing to tell that story. People need to see, you know, the work that's going on out there. I couldn't be more proud. And they're working, this is our 4th week of the Emergency Operations Center. And the city had we started our work a few weeks before that. These are people that are working around the clock every single day. Adam, I have to tell them to take a day off. I have to tell them, you need to go home and take care of yourself on a Saturday or on a Sunday, because they have hit the ground running from day one and they haven't stopped. Talk about the soldiers. They're doing an incredible job. That's not just our city, that's the county, that's all the other cities too. But I be the big advocate for all employees, and I couldn't be prouder with the work. In fact, I was just talking to my city administrator today, Wes Craigo, and I said, man, we got to think of a way to reward these people, because when we're on the other side of this, I don't know what that looks like. It can't cost any money, that's for sure, because our budget's taken a huge hit from all of this. But we need to find out a way that we can reward them for what they're doing, because it's pretty darn amazing.
And how significant, I know it's so early right now, but how significant do you think the impact on the city budget is going to be?
It's early, and you know what? We're getting those assessments weekly because it's changing every single week. We just had a presentation last week. It's already changed. It's going to be significant. That's all I can tell you. It's going to be significant. So we're going to get creative about how we address that. We have an incredible chief financial officer who will have all the trust in, who's going to get us through this. And we're going to have to, we're just like the newspaper, we're going to be making some tough decisions. But we're going to do everything we can to keep everybody working here at City Hall. I just don't know what that looks like right
All right, I think we're ready to wrap this up.
Thank you for the opportunity. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Rob, but I think he's...
Yeah.
Oh, there, now you can.
Oh, there we go.
I muted myself just in case the dog lost its mind.
Oh.
So thank you for coming. You know, I might suggest, if you're looking for something, a reward for your staff.
Yes.
You know, a subscription to the Spokesman-Review is the gift that keeps on giving. You know, it really is. It's just, I can't emphasize that. Thank you for doing this. We're doing these every day, and tomorrow at 11 we have Kyle Smith, the coach from Washington State, and at 2 p.m. we have the Reverend Walter Kendricks, who's going to talk to us about Easter services during a pandemic. So we're really trying to make these reach out to as many people and make them enlightening, but also fun from time to time. So, Mayor, thank you for being a part of this. I really hope that if this lasts much longer, we can reach out to you again, because I know people just
Absolutely.
can't ask any questions.
Yep.
So-
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to, Rob.
All right. Well, thank you both, and we'll resume these tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.